We're going to roll the clock back to 1987 in this episode. This is about the third 8mm video camera that Sony made. I have in my possession, and it's mine, a CCD V110, which was the third camcorder that Sony released. Actually, no, the fourth, but it's an old one. Well, here's a camera that you don't see every day. This is one of the first generation of the 8mm. It was even before they came up with the name Handycam. It was still called a Video 8 at the time. It followed the CCD V8, which was followed by the CCD V8 AF autofocus. And then we had the CCD V110. I think that was the third one. Is there a date when this thing was made? There is. 1987. This is quite the collector's item. It has a grip that can be adjusted, so you can put it on your shoulder and hold it like that and control your zoom, or you could adjust that like that for travel, for storage. You could carry it like that, or turn it all the way that way, so you can hold the camera up on your shoulder like that. A buddy gave me this camera a few years ago. I don't know if it works. I haven't tried it. I figured we would try this together and see if it works or not. It may very well work, because this was made before the capacitor issue really became problematic. I want to take a look at the transport on this thing and see which one this one's got in it. I think this is the U loading on this one. It might be easier if I open it up. To open it up, I need a power supply, which I just so happen that I have the power supply for it. It uses an ACP88, which was the same shape that the batteries were. You put this into an adapter, you stood this into an adapter, and then stuck your battery in beside it to charge it. And then you can take it out of the adapter and stick the whole entire adapter right into the back of the camera for playback. As I say, I don't know if it works or not, so let's find out. Eject. VTR power. I guess it doesn't work. Controls to control the tape. Yeah, it's not turning on. I don't know if it's whether the adapter is any good. Those contacts look kind of gungy there, like a battery may have gone bad and leaked. So those contacts don't look good. We'll just try scraping up those contacts a bit and see whether we get any power. Still nothing. Okay, well, this has got a problem, so maybe, just maybe, I can fix this thing. Let's see if the adapter works. Yeah, 8 volts. Yeah, that's working. I think it's 8 volts output on this thing. Yeah, 8.5 volts. So that part works. How about the camera power? Does the camera power work? Oh, camera power works. Okay, that's interesting. Well, it did turn on. And then it turned off. The zoom works. Oh, one direction works. It zooms out. Or is that in? I guess that's in. It zooms in, but it doesn't zoom out. There is a picture on the eyepiece. It's very dim, but it is there. So this one uses the U-loading mechanism, like the very, very first generation cameras all used. I think this was probably the last model that used this loading system too. It's gone off again. It was on there, but it's gone off. Was it a one-time thing where it turned on and now it's dead? Now it's working. I think we had a bad connection in the battery contact there is what the problem was. Could this thing actually work? To play it back, you had to use this adapter, the RFU adapter, because there was no AV outputs on the unit itself. And this gave you AV inputs as well. And you could select VHF or line output. So this plugged into the TV. And then this unit plugged into the back of the camera through this multi-connector, which could be covered up with that cover. You could also plug in a remote. And there was accessories that you could put onto here with a special connector. Let's see if I get a picture of it turn on the camera. I have a picture. It's like looking through a fog. And that zoomed all the way out. This beast is not focusing at all. So, more than likely what's happened is inside the lens, maybe some of the lubricant from the iris has dripped onto the lens. And it looks like the heads might be dirty. I'll try a different tape. See the way this thing threads? Might be worth pulling this apart just to show that off. Yeah, heads are dirty on this thing. Let me just try getting a cleaning tape. We'll see whether the heads will come clean on this or whether it's another problem. And for any of you guys wondering, if I get this thing running, gotta fix that lens if I can. If I can get this one running, yes, I'll sell it. This being such a rare piece, though, I'm not going to give this one away. This one's going to go for whatever I can get for it, because this is one of the first of the 8mm decks, or the 8mm cameras that Sony ever made. It's quite a unique piece because it uses a totally different threading mechanism. If you watch the way this thing threads the tape, it's like a beta machine. It's a U loading as opposed to an M loading system. And there we go. That's all it needed. Look at this. This thing's playing a tape. No capacitors. No capacitor issues. Look at that. It's beautiful. The picture quality of this thing is excellent. Right now I could sell this thing with the camera section not working as a player, because the quality of that is excellent. But as I say, this one here is, because it's so unique, being a shoulder-mounted 8mm camera from 1987, this was only 1 year after Sony actually released. I think the first ones actually hit the market in '85, but it was the second. It was the second generation. There was 2 cameras initially released: the CCD V8 and the CCD M8. The M8 was a Handycam version, a record-only camera, and it was part of the Pack 8. It came with a player, a separate little player, which I have one. It just doesn't work, but I have one that maybe someday we'll get it working, that you play the tapes on. And it was basically this deck. It was basically this, because it even used this adapter plugged into it, and it used the power pack like this to operate it. And then this one followed after the V8, the V8 AF, the V110 followed, and then of course the V220, and then we got into the Handycam ones, which were the handheld ones. But considering how old this thing is, the fact that it's playing and hasn't got capacitor problems is quite amazing. And the reason it doesn't have capacitor problems as well, if you look over here, you'll see, oops, I just knocked the power out. You'll see the capacitors. They're conventional type. Yeah, that's why it's not powering up. What's not powering up? It's the adapter. It's not making a good connection. Now I know what I need to do on this. Fix that battery connection and see whether we can get the lens to work a little bit better. So let's get started on this one. Yeah, if you look down in the battery terminals there, you can see the green corrosion. That's why the power's cutting out. So first things first, let's get this thing apart, clean up those battery terminals, and then we'll deal with some of the other problems that this unit has. So I guess first things first, let's start removing the arrow mark screws and see what's inside this thing. And I've never opened one of these ones up. So this will be a first for me, but I would imagine that it probably comes apart fairly easily because the thing's a monster. Camera size speaking, it's compared to some of the little ones. I'm going to get a different screwdriver. I don't want to break this one. If you're wondering where all the time went since the time on my watch when I last saw the shot here, I had to mail a package, or ship a package, to a guy in the States. And anyway, it turned into a real 3-ring circus. I don't know if he's ever going to get it. It might get scrapped, because I was kind of done at the end of this. He was paying for it on his own account, so he sent me a way bill for UPS, and I went to the local UPS depot, and the guy wouldn't accept it because there was the incorrect postage amount or shipping amount. The package was a different size than he had filled out, and the weight was different. So anyway, to make a long story short, they told me, well, if I take it right down to the UPS main depot, which is like 40 miles away, that they could deal with it there. They could ship it there. But the local depot, he couldn't do it. So I get back in my car. And I go all the way down to the main terminal. And I run into the same problem there. Is that he said, no, we can't send it for you. We can't send it collect. You know, it's you'll have to pay. And at this point, I wasn't in a very good mood because I just drove over Hell's Half Acre to get there, cross a bridge, and now we're getting into rush hour. So I finally left it, and I said, you know what? I said, it's not my responsibility anymore. It's on your counter, and I'm not taking it back. So I left it. And the woman at the counter was like, sir, you know, we can dispose of that for you. We can dispose of it. I said to her, I said, you know what? Do what you have to do. I said, it's in your custody now. Have a good day. And that's where it remained when I left. So hopefully it's going to get to its destination. Okay, side should pop off its camera. I may have to take this off. I may have to take this grip apart. Because sometimes there's a screw in here, which there is. That just holds the grip on, though. I may not have to take that off. The side cover should pop off the camera first. This right side cover should lift off. If I've got all the screws, which I think I do. And, oh, no, I don't. There's still two more hidden under the viewfinder here. Now, I think this will come off now. Okay, now I can unplug the 3 plugs, the 4 plugs. A black plug into a white connector and a white plug into a black connector. Some of these don't want to come out easily. We'll have to coax them out a bit. There we go. Electronic viewfinder. And I guess this is the microphone input board. It sits in there like that. And of course, there's one more screw here. And now the whole side cover should lift off. Okay, what's holding it up? There we go. There's the side off the camera. Pretty impressive, huh? Really quite impressive. Here's the little video deck. This is the same deck. They packaged this part in a separate cabinet with a plastic case all the way around it and sold it. That was the one that came as part of the pack 8. They took the board was sitting in the back here in place of the battery compartment, but and then the battery slid in up here. There was empty space. I've got one, right? It doesn't work. It's the same mechanism as this, but real neat, real neat. I'm going to get into that battery compartment down here and see if I can clean up those terminals, if I can get this side off. This one should just lift off too, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe not. No, it doesn't lift off. Everything else lifts out of it. And that should lift off this side cover to reveal the underside of the VCR board. This is the controls for the titler. Yes, this had a built-in titler. We'll just unplug that side cover, get it out of the way, so that I can work on the rest of the unit. As you can see, the camera is on its own chassis here, and the recorder was separate, so the recorder can actually be unplugged from the camera section and worked on separately. It's just held in place with a couple connections, namely this one here, and there's another connector up here, and I think there's a power connector down here that connects the power to the camera. I'm interested in getting into this battery cabinet here, the battery case, because I want to repair those contacts, which I can get at probably right from here. Actually, I can get at them from here to clean them up, but you'll see that they are pretty corroded down here. If we look, get some light in there, you can see that the contacts here are pretty gungy, and that's why it's not getting power. So we're going to get in there and we're going to clean those contacts up, and that should get the power problem solved on this. Fingers crossed. Then we got to deal with the camera section. See if I can get that that picture to be a little bit clearer, because obviously there's a focus problem, and I think it's probably some lubricant from the lens inside that's dripped onto the lens itself, just from sitting around over all these years. See if I can scrape these contacts clean with a sharp edge, or even a knife, like a scalpel or something. We'll try to scrape the corrosion off of these contacts. I think what happened on this was the guy left the battery in it, and the old NiCad battery started leaching some of its chemicals that are leaking out of the cells. I'm going to use just put some deoxit on the contacts here, help clean them up a bit. That looks like it's working. It's on. Let's see how this thing performs. We'll just see how it works when I plug in the adapter to load a tape, so you guys can see how this one actually loads the tape. Where's power? So watch the threading on this one. Maybe I'll take this cover off so you guys can see it a little bit better, because this is not like anything you guys have seen on 8mm equipment. This more resembles a Betamax. And the early 8mm machines, this was always the claim, that they use a U loading system as opposed to an M. Because if you remember back in the early days of the Betamax, that was always Sony's claim. They went with the M loading, or they went with the U loading system as opposed to the M loading system, because it was a simpler tape path and there was fewer angles for the tape to bend around. And that was the reason that they went with this design as opposed to using the M system, which laces the tape up with the two arms, pull the tape out on both sides, that VHS did. This is almost identical to how Betamax loaded. In fact, it is identical to the early Betamax. The later Betamax went the other way, like the 2000 series. I'm talking the 5000 series and the 8000 series went around this way, and then the 2000 series, the SL 2000, the 2100, 2400, 2500, 2700, and all the later generation, they pulled the tape out over to the audio head this way, and then they had retractable guide pins that would lie flat and they would pop up and they would pull the tape all the way around. That was the second generation, the 711B chassis. The 710 worked like this. So you load the tape. Now that's how our VCR is supposed to look. I should use this as my opening. Not look familiar? That looks exactly like U-matic. Love it. I can't get enough of watching these mechanisms load. Gotta like it. Play. My other tape. And yes, we do have a picture and sound. As if the sound muted. But yeah, if I get my hand anywhere near here, the plasma is just killing it. Anyway, I get my hand, just do this. I'll show you the picture. If I get my hand anywhere near this, like the plasma screen is just killing it. See what I mean? If I get my hand anywhere near the head. Just induction. The head amp is pretty sensitive. Anyway, what do we got on there? I think just got pause. It's not a clear pause. It's a two-head machine. It does have frame-by-frame advance, so I guess it's not bad. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. And you got search, forward, search reverse. Okay, let's get into the camera section and see if I can find the problem for the blurriness. I mean, just look at the shielding of the head and the head and the preamp. And this camera would have been expensive. I got this from my my childhood friend that I've known since I was 4 years old. And he's got a VX3 now. I'm trying to get that one off of him. But he's got a VX3, apparently. He replaced this with the VX3. And I'm trying to get that one off of him because I'd love to have a VX3 in my collection. And to say, this one will likely remain in my collection. There's not a lot of pieces of equipment that I would collect. Like of everything, there's not a lot that I would collect, but this is one that I probably would, just because of the rarity of it. It's rare for a couple reasons, and one was because they didn't sell a lot of these things because they were expensive, but two, because of its age. trying to figure out how to get the lens off this thing. I want to see if I can clean in the back of the lens. I'm not quite sure what I got to take off to get at it. It might be on the other side. You see, the lens is focusing. If I adjust the focus, the lens is coming into focus, but the actual image is not. If I zoom control on here, right? It's like something's on either on the back of the lens, or more than likely has dripped onto the actual imager itself. That's what I'm thinking. It's some lubricant from the lens has dripped onto the imager. It's blurring everything. Looks like to get the lens off, it's through this side. I got to pull the camera block off, which is no problem because it just kind of unplugs like this, and take the actual CCD off from the lens. Seeing how this thing unplugs, there's a couple of plugs that hold this in, and then I should be able to separate the entire camera section from the VTR, because they're basically two separate units here. If I unplug that, and there should be another plug down here somewhere that has to come undone, and then the whole camera section will just unplug from the rest of it. The key will be remembering which plugs go where. Okay, this unplugs from this side, that unplugs from there. That one comes up from that, and there's a few more plugs here that plug in somewhere. One of them's down here. That's one of them. It's already undone. Those ones are already undone. I may not have to take those out anyway. I just want to take this block apart, losing all the covers for the screws. Should be a couple of screws to hold the CCD assembly together. I don't want to take apart any more of this than I absolutely have to, for obvious reasons, because I'd like it to kind of go back together. That screw's already loose. And there's a camera board. Wonderful. Wonderful. Wonder if I can swing this out of the way and undo the CCD from the lens. There's probably another board in there as well. I may give up on this thing before I get it apart. Just keep it as a playback machine. This is ridiculous. All this to try and get the imager out of the way so that I can try and clean the lens. I don't even know if it screws on from the side or whether it's... Looks like there's another board in there as well. Where the heck is the CCD? Oh, there it is. CCD is way up here. It's got a shield cover, a shield soldered over top of it, and a couple screws that go into the lens. They go in this way. that's the screw that holds the lens on. Somehow I don't. No, it's not. You know what? I think I'm gonna quit while I'm ahead. That's what I'm gonna do. I don't need the camera section working that bad. I know I probably just generated a whole bunch of hate mail, but in reality, I don't need the camera to be working that badly. It's never, ever, ever in a million years going to be used as a camera ever again. So there's not really any point. If this had been a little bit easier to get to the lens, then I would have taken the lens off so that I could clean it up, because I'm convinced that the problem is just lubricant that's dripped down when this camera was sitting in storage, probably here in my workshop, because this has been here for a number of years. It's not like I just got this. This has been sitting here for, you know, probably 5 years. And it could have just been from the heat sitting here in the summer. It was sitting on its side, but that could have been where it came from. So I think what I'm going to do at this point is I'm just going to throw this thing back together, and hopefully it still works. And this will just become a playback machine. You know, not that I need a playback machine, but it's just kind of a neat looking machine. You know, it's a neat looking machine, a little throwback for, you know, for home video, for one of the first that came out. So let me just start reassembling this thing. Hopefully I'll remember where all the controls go that fell off it, all the little buttons and switches that fell off of it as I was disassembling it. And we'll plug everything back in. And put it all back together. So that goes on like that. And then this section just clips together. Of course, there's plugs that I gotta get into place. That one goes up there. This one plugs in down here. Put all the little switches back on where they come off of. It's like a record switch. You know, I would have liked to have been able to get to that lens and clean the back of the lens off, but reality-wise, the amount of work required to take this whole camera portion apart, to pull these boards out, to get to the screws to remove the lens, I would have been here for hours and hours more. So I think it's just best to leave that be, because it works. It'll record and play, and the VCR section works, which is really the important part, is that the fact that the VCR portion works. That's why we want to resurrect as many of these 8mm camcorders, and this is a really good one because, as you can see, it's through hole capacitors. There's no surface mounted electrolytics on this at all. They're all through hole. So that's what makes this one such a good unit, just as a machine for playing back existing tapes. Because as the other ones all fail and wear out, it's good to have an option. And it looks kind of cool. You know, this one just looks cool. Looks like a museum piece. It's in really good shape. Here's something I didn't notice. On here, it's marked as SPLP. But the button itself, on here, it's marked as counter 1 and 2. Like it's got two different tape counters, not a speed. You don't see a speed selector switch on here, but you do see this one that's marked counter 1 and counter 2, which is kind of bizarre. So maybe it isn't. Maybe it only is a single speed camcorder. Maybe the LP SP speed was just for the PAL market cameras, because they all initially had 2 speeds. The NTSC ones did not. I'm starting to think more that is not a speed selector. It actually selects a different tape counter. Sorry, I had to turn the camera off there as I was putting this together, because I was cursing a bit. My God, this thing's hard to put this thing back together. No wonder Sony charged a small fortune to to work on these things, because I tell you, the amount of work required to get this thing back together was just ridiculous. Look at these special little connectors here on the back. Ever seen anything like that? Accessory in and out, or like a little mini coax connector. I don't know what it's for. It's got a sharpness control on the back here. And I guess that's it. I can put the top, plug in all of these connectors. Hopefully they're all there. Put the top on it and put the screws in it, and fingers crossed it's going to work. Now the fun, remembering which plug went where. Fortunately, they are kind of keyed. The white connector, 2-pin, goes to a black. A yellow with 3-pin goes to a yellow. A white with 2 pins with a yellow wire goes to the other yellow. I had to remember all this when I was taking it apart. And then this piece goes on like this. The nose piece fits on like that. And now I can put the screws in. Snaps in like that and slides forward. I like the warning on here. Connect the plug so the guide pins of the plug do not touch the multi-connector. These ones are made out of plastic. But on the original CCD V8, these were made out of metal. And you can see what would happen when someone was fiddling around behind their camera trying to plug something in. And they shorted it out when it was on. Now I have, I don't know if I can find it or not, I have a tuner timer unit that will plug into this and convert this into an 8mm VCR. I should go and look and see if I can find it. But I do have a tuner timer that would plug into that multi-connector for one of these, which makes this even rarer. And there it is. This is probably one of the rarest pieces of AV gear that you've probably ever seen, because this was like $1,000 accessory for the early camcorders. It had AV inputs and outputs, a tuner, and an RF modulator built in. You plugged it right into your TV. I don't know if this works or not. We're going to try it. So audio out and video out. You'll have to connect your coax up to it. So why not? Let's connect up the coax while we're at it. And plug it in. And to watch it go boom. The display lights up and it powers up, and I've got snow on the screen. Let's select a channel. It's got a picture. There it is. That's just displaying what's on my in-house cable system. Remember I said initially the connector had metal pins? There's the connector. It also has a battery charger built in, so it would charge up the batteries for these type of camcorders. But the idea was you take your camera home, you set it down on top of your expensive tuner timer unit, and you plugged in power. And now we could remotely control this VTR. Now, if I had a remote control handy, which I do have, it uses a standard Sony remote in Video 2 mode. So any Sony remote, Video 1 was beta, Video 2 was 8mm, and Video 3 was VHS. So any of the Sony remote controls will actually control this camera through this unit, but I don't have one handy. So I'll switch over to it here. And it switches over and plays the video that's on the tape. Let's say, it's not perfect freeze frame, but it's damn close. Now, something unique about this tape cover, I took the screws out of this, but I didn't need to. It just unclips. Watch. This just snaps on like that. Where is it here? That lever is sticking. It just clips on. There we go. Just like that. Cover's missing. There was normally a cover that would close down over here, but it's missing. It's slid open. It's pulled back and lifted up for when you had the adapter in, and if you had the battery, and when the battery actually went down inside, and this cover slid over top of it like that, but that cover is missing. So sharpness control on the back, make the picture sharp or soft. And of course there's the edit control. The edit control, what that does is it bypasses the equalization. So if you have your picture sharp, you turn on edit. Makes the picture look a little softer. But what it does is it removes the playback equalizer circuits to improve the quality of the dub. And there's your real-time counter. It's got 2 counter modes on here. And this one here. It'll do insert editing as well. Look at that. Anyway, neat little machine. Part of my collection of old vintage video recorders. With the tuner timer power unit, this becomes a home 8mm video deck. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. But we're going to try and get this 8mm deck up and running again. This was part of the M8 pack. This was the player. Basically a full function recorder. It's the EVC8. We're going to work on this one. That's another rare piece of equipment that I own. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you Later.